So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a really complex and honestly pretty invisible dynamic. It's called loyalty extraction. Think of it as the architecture of a psychological trap that uses a person's own sense of honor against them.
You know, the most striking truth about this whole thing is that the people who demand the most unconditional loyalty are almost always the ones providing the most conditional care. And that's a huge paradox, right? Because we all think loyalty is something that's earned, something that grows over years of trust.
But in these kinds of high-pressure situations, your own integrity, your deep-seated need to be a person of your word, gets turned against you. It's used to turn a promise you made way too early into a psychological cage. Your best qualities are literally weaponized to keep you from seeing the warning signs that are flashing right in your face.
And this creates this really bizarre, unsettling feeling. Have you ever been there where a person you barely know makes you feel like a total traitor just for asking a simple question? Where just trying to get clarity feels like this huge act of betrayal. If you felt that, you know just how disorienting it is.
Well, that is the core paradox of what's called moral fast-tracking. It's that exact moment when your natural, human desire for a deep connection gets hijacked and turned into the very mechanism of your own capture. Your search for belonging is used to build the walls that trap you.
Okay, so let's really dive into this. Here's our game plan. We've touched on the paradox, now we're going to break down the architecture of this cage, piece by piece. Then we'll look at the three-step manipulation pattern, get into the psychology of why it's so effective, and, most importantly, talk about how to reclaim your own sovereignty and build a new, healthier code of honor.
All right, let's start with the foundation. How is this trap actually built? I mean, we're not talking about bricks and mortar here. It's built with beliefs, with cognitive biases. The whole structure exists inside your own mind, which is exactly what makes it so powerful and so hard to see when you're in it.
At the very heart of this is a concept called ethical enmeshment. Now, this isn't about love or normal friendship. It's a cognitive shift. It's a process where your internal moral compass, your personal GPS for right and wrong, gets slowly, systematically recalibrated. It stops pointing toward your true north and instead gets locked on to serving the controller's needs. And the result? Suddenly seeing the truth feels like you're committing a betrayal. Your own clarity starts to make you feel guilty.
Now, this whole enmeshment thing is held in place by two really powerful beliefs. First, you've got the honor hook. This is that nasty little voice in your head that says doubting this person or even thinking about leaving makes you a bad person, a flake, disloyal. And then there's relational claustrophobia. Oh, that is that gut-wrenching, suffocating feeling of being trapped by a promise you made way too soon before you had all the information. Your own conscience becomes the leash.
And this is where the power dynamic completely flips on its head. See, in a healthy relationship, you're doing what we call active vetting. You're watching their actions, you're judging their consistency over time. But in this trap, you're pushed into passive compliance. You stop judging their character and you start obsessing about proving your loyalty, even if it means lowering your own standards to prove you're not some fair-weather friend. Okay, so now that we see the architecture, let's look at the blueprint. How does this turn into a predictable, repeatable pattern of manipulation? Because this isn't random. There is a system, a sequence designed to bypass your rational mind and lock in your commitment before it's actually been earned. The whole thing unfolds in three distinct stages. First, strategic vulnerability. Then, creating a shared enemy. And finally, the loyalty test. Understanding this sequence is kind of like watching a magic trick in slow motion. Once you see how it's done, you can't unsee it. So it all kicks off with step one, strategic vulnerability. This is where the controller shares some dark secret or a story of being victimized really early on. But here's the thing, it's not genuine vulnerability, it's a tool. It's a test to see how quickly you'll let them in, and it's designed to make you feel special, honored to be trusted so fast. It's a shortcut to a sense of intimacy that hasn't been earned. Then comes step two, the shared enemy. Once that false intimacy is in place, the whole dynamic shifts. Instead of building a relationship, the controller builds a bunker. They create this us against the world story. And this is so powerful because it taps right into our ancient brain wiring, our in-group/out-group biology. All of a sudden, it's not just two people getting to know each other. You're soldiers in a foxhole together, and everyone else is the enemy. And it all leads to this. Step three, the loyalty test. This is the checkmate move. The controller waits until you're at a low point. Maybe you're stressed or feeling insecure. Then they manufacture some kind of moral crisis. Your decision to stay, no matter how much it hurts you, is framed as the ultimate proof of your love and loyalty. Your own fear of being abandoned is used to lock you in for good.
So, the big question is, why on earth does this work so well? It's not because the person being targeted is weak or gullible. Not at all. It's because this pattern is expertly designed to exploit the most fundamental parts of our human psychology.
It all comes down to this core mismatch. The controller's goal? It's something called total narrative immunity. Basically, they want to lock in your loyalty before you've had a chance to really see who they are. Meanwhile, the target's vulnerability is just, well, being human. It's that deep need for meaningful belonging. It's the desire to be seen as reliable, as the one who stays. So you have one person seeking control and the other just seeking connection. They're playing two completely different games.
And this whole dynamic gets supercharged by this little glitch in our brains called commitment bias. It's our natural tendency to stick with a decision we've made, even when there's tons of evidence telling us it's wrong. Why? To maintain a consistent image of ourselves. The source material compares it to a ship captain who feels they have to go down with the ship just because they publicly said they'd command it. Once we say, "I'm with you," our brain fights like crazy against changing our minds because it feels like a personal failure.
Okay. We've seen the architecture of the cage. We've looked at the psychology that locks the door. Now for the most important part. How do you find the exit? How do you dismantle this thing and get your own judgment back?
The first step is to ask yourself one critical question. It's a kind of litmus test. How do you audit the cost of doubt in this relationship? Meaning, what happens when you raise a concern or express uncertainty? In a healthy dynamic, doubt is met with curiosity, with reassurance. In this kind of trap, doubt is treated like treason. That reaction tells you everything you need to know. Reclaiming your sovereignty is all about developing what the source calls conditional loyalty awareness. And no, that doesn't mean you're not loyal. It means you're smart about your loyalty. It's a toolkit of principles, almost like personal declarations. Things like, my loyalty belongs to the truth first, not to someone's story. My devotion is earned, not demanded. This one is huge. My conscience is a guide, not a leash. And, so important, I am allowed to change my mind when the data changes. Just recognizing that initial honor hook for what it is, that is the first real step to freedom.
And really, this whole process, it isn't about starting a fight. It's not about confrontation. It's about a quiet internal awakening. The goal is just to develop the clarity to recognize when what you've been calling devotion has actually crossed the line into submission. When your loyalty stops being a gift you give freely and starts being a tax you're forced to pay.
So, we've walked through the trap, the psychology, and the toolkit for getting out. Let's end with the one big principle that can protect you from this and totally reframe how you think about commitment.
The source material really nails it with this line, the most dangerous cages are the ones we build for ourselves out of a misplaced sense of honor. See, the trap works because it convinces you that the cage is actually a castle, and that staying inside is the most noble thing you can possibly do. But real honor isn't about sticking to a bad promise. It's about having the courage to align your actions with the truth, even when it's hard.
And that brings us to the final, most important takeaway. Blind loyalty is not a virtue, it's a blindfold. It doesn't help you see the person in front of you more clearly, it actually prevents you from seeing them at all. Real, true loyalty has to be built on seeing things clearly, on seeing someone's true character, good and bad, over time, and then choosing to stay. It should never, ever be demanded before it's been earned.